The Prime Minister is hailing Budget 2011 a Labor budget through and through. Its central theme, jobs and skills, and what Julia Gillard calls a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to shift people off welfare and onto work.
But the story of this budget too is a story of jobs and opportunity. We believe in the benefits and dignity of work. We believe for Australians that a life of opportunity starts by having access to a job and then by having access to skills and training and the means and wherewithal to get a better job, to get the next job.
Prime Minister, well, the budget includes a mix of policies to encourage welfare recipients to either enter the workforce or work longer hours. The targeted groups include the long-term unemployed, young single mothers and some people with disability. Some measures, such as the wage subsidies and the chance to work more part-time hours without being penalised, have been welcomed. But others, including stripping part benefits from some recipients, have been criticised as too tough. The package was put together by the Families Minister Jenny Macklin, who joins us in our Parliament House studio. Minister, good morning.
Good morning, Fran.
Because the limits you're putting on family payments are aimed at the upper end of the income scale, this is what we've been discussing with Michelle, Tony Abbott says you're waging a form of class warfare against households of combined incomes of $150,000. What do you say to that? Are you soaking the rich?
Of course not. And Tony Abbott should remember a couple of things. One is that this family payments system for Family Tax Benefit Part A was actually designed by Mr Howard, and the income limits are those set by Mr Howard at around $120,000, so they're no different. The second fact that Mr Abbott should remember is that when he was the opposition spokesperson for families, he actually supported the pause that we put in place to the top thresholds. We put this in place once before. The opposition supported it. And in fact, Mr Abbott said at the time that he thought these savings were a bit soft. So he had one view a couple of years ago when he wasn't the leader. Now he has a view which is that he just wants to oppose everything. They also supported the introduction of the means test on Family Tax Benefit Part B at $150,000 when we introduced it in 2009. So I think if you look at their record, they actually supported all of these changes when we put them in place over the last 3 years.
Do you think households with a combined income of over $150,000 are rich?
No, I don't. But one of the things that the Australian family tax benefit system has had in place for a long time is a targeted approach. It is targeted to low and middle income earners, and it's always been the case that we give the most support to the lowest income earners, and then we slowly decrease it as people's incomes rises. And of course, that's the critical thing here. As people's incomes rise, their families are better off, and they don't need family tax benefit as much.
Well, that's all in the definition, isn't it? Treasurer Wayne Swan says their money would be better targeted at families of modest income. A family living in Sydney, for instance, it's an expensive city to live in, on $150,000 probably feels like they are on a modest income.
That's true, and that's why, of course, we're introducing a range of other supports. We've just, for the first time in Australia, introduced a paid parental leave scheme, never been done before. We've also introduced in this budget the money for additional support for teenagers. If we'd left things the way they were under Mr Abbott, families would face a reduction in their family tax benefit when their child turned 15. We're changing that. We're fixing it, recognising that teenagers actually cost more. And so families will receive up to $4,200 extra a year to help with the cost of raising teenagers who are still at school.
Let's talk about the welfare to work moves. Honourable intention, moving people off welfare and into a job and into meaningful work, as we heard the Prime Minister talk about. But can you guarantee that vulnerable people won't be hurt by this? Because that's the concern of welfare groups. They don't trust it.
That's why we've really done an enormous amount of work to get the supports alongside the obligations. We do want to make sure that whoever you are and wherever you live, you get the chance to get a job in this economy. We can see unemployment coming down, but we do know that there are some areas in Australia where unemployment is too high, and also where we've had too many people on unemployment benefits for too long. So we are targeting our efforts to the very long long-term unemployed, to jobless families, to single parents, teenage parents, because we want to help them get into work. If you actually have a look at the budget figures, you'll see that we're spending more than we're saving because we're putting so much extra into training places, wage subsidies, support for families in subsidised childcare, those sorts of initiatives.
Welfare groups, though, are worried about the ones that fall through the cracks. They like the idea of training and support to help people into work, but what about a 17-year-old single mum who can't cope with going back to school and doing year 12, or can't cope with managing a job and a baby, might not have family support? I mean, you know yourself, a 17-year-old with family support doing school can be stressed enough.
That's very true. But I also know that if that 17-year-old doesn't finish her education, doesn't get the chance to get a decent level of skills, she'll face a life of poverty. And so what we want is for her to work with Centrelink to get her skills up. In the first instance, it might just be help with managing her baby because she doesn't have the family support that you talk about. So that's why we're going to require the single parent, the teenage parent, to come into Centrelink and work with Centrelink on the issues that that young parent needs. And we want to get it very specific for the individual parent.
As we pour through the budget papers, one savings measure that popped up is a deferral of the paid paternity leave. This is the 2 weeks leave for mainly fathers after the birth of the baby. It was supposed to start in July next year. You're pushing it back another 6 months for a saving of just $33 million. A lot of fathers are going to be disappointed with that.
Well, of course, one of the good things about our paid parental leave scheme is it can be shared between mums and dads. So if...
Well, a lot of mothers might be disappointed too then, I'm sure.
Well, we've never had paid parental leave in Australia before, and I can tell you the parents I speak to are absolutely thrilled that they're getting it. We've got around 50,000 parents registered for paid parental leave in Australia, never been done before. So, yes, we've delayed this a little bit to give us a bit more time to consult with employers and so on, but paid parental leave is there, it's happening, parents are benefiting, and both mums and dads and their babies certainly think it's been a great initiative.
Another element of your budget is spending around $120 million extending income management. That's already been on trial, is in place in Northern Territory since the federal intervention in Aboriginal communities. You're going to trial the scheme in 5 communities. These are general communities, not Indigenous communities. Will this be voluntary or compulsory, this trial?
A mixture of both, and it really mirrors what we've been doing in some parts of Western Australia for the last couple of years. So this approach now operates across Perth in a non-discriminatory way and also in the Kimberley. The way it will work is that if the child protection authorities in these states recommend that a parent would benefit from, and their children would benefit from income management, up to 70% of their welfare payments can be quarantined for the essential of life, or people can volunteer, or Centrelink can identify that a person is vulnerable, maybe not paying their rent, for example, and they too could have 50% of their welfare income managed.
Just very briefly, we're almost out of time, but what proof is there that it works? Because we were told yesterday that there hasn't been the evaluation yet of the Northern Territory system.
That's right. In the Northern Territory, we're undertaking a major evaluation, but we have done some evaluation in Perth, and certainly the evidence from Western Australia is it's been very beneficial to help families get control of their money.
Okay, Jenny Macklin, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Families Minister Jenny Macklin and her portfolio, a real centrepiece of Julia Gillard's first budget as Prime Minister Wayne Swan's fourth budget. You're listening to Breakfast. It's 7 minutes to 8.